Blog Talk Radio.
Mi chiamo Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Eneye Ojira Da, Medinde Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Akwamuman, Amaruka, Atifi, Odwirafo. It means greetings to all Afurakani people, Afuraitkaitnit people, meaning African black people. Today is Ojira Day. My name is Odwirafo, Kwesi, Nehem, Ptah, Akhan. Odwirafo of the Akwamu Nation in North America. Yedase, we thank you for tuning in once again to the show. We're going to put some links in the chat room to the specific text that we're going to go over, that we're going to address. First is the NHOMA link, and you can actually find two of the texts we're going to deal with tonight. You can go directly to that, put that in there right now. The first one is MMARA, which is divine law and divine hate. And then you also the OBARIMA. So you go to the NHOMA page. For those who are on the phone line, the OBARIMA link, OBARIMA book, Afurakani Manhood. I'm typing that in right now. And then also MMARA. MMARA is divine law and divine hate. And you can download both of those. You can download the ebook versions of both of those texts directly from the NHOMA link on the website. All right. So we also, for people who are new, of course, if you're in the chat room, the only way you can interact in the chat room is to the only way you can interact in the chat room is to log in. So you have to use a username to log in. If you cannot if you don't have a username, you can sign up for one very quickly, and then you can interact that way. Anybody on the phone line, if you wanted to comment or have questions, just hit the number 1 so we can see that your hand is raised. For basic announcements, 3 times a week we have 3 different broadcasts. On Joada, Monday we have Akhan Nanasom, Ancient Authentic, Akhan Ancestral Religion. We deal specifically with Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religion, or African Ancestral Religion, specifically focused on the Akhan tradition. Of course, there's a great deal of misinformation regarding the Akhan tradition put forth by individuals in the Western Hemisphere as well as on the continent who have been corrupted by white culture, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, and so forth, woven the nonsense into the culture. So we're dealing with an authentic expression of ancient Akhan ancestral religion. On Benada, of course, today is Tuesday, we deal with Ojira. On Wednesdays, Akuada, we have Egua Marketplace Day, which we showcase a business, product, service, business owner in the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community who have products and services and events and so forth that serve the community in a positive fashion, meet our needs in a positive fashion, but also share our ancestral values in the process. So that's on Awukuda Wednesday. On Ojira Da, or Ojira Day, which is today, Benada Tuesday. The show is Ojira. Ojira means purification. Ojira means to purify, to cleanse. Ojira means purification. It also means a celebration of purification in the Akhan language. Of course, our New Year's celebration, Ojira, meaning purification, a 7-day observance that's observed for Akwamuman, the Akwamu Nation in North America, in September, leading up to the first full day of the autumn or Atimet equinox, the fall equinox, which is our New Year's Day, which for us began on September 22nd. That was our first day of 2015. So Ojira, purification, is also the name of our New Year's celebration, but it also means purification in general. When you look on the website, you'll find that Jida in ancient Kemet means purification. It also means a celebration of purification. The reason why we call the show, titles the show Jida, because when we're dealing with Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, no matter what form it takes, whatever expression, ancient expressions from ancient Kanat and Kemet, Nubia, and Egypt, so-called Yoruba, Akhan, Ebe, Bodun, Igbo, Fula, Maasai, Bakongo, Ovambo, whatever group we come from, wherever we are on the continent or wherever we have migrated to or were forced to migrate into the Western Hemisphere during the Musuo Kwesi, the great perversity, the enslavement era, then we still continue to practice our culture. Ojida purifies through purification. It operationalizes Nanasom. Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion is the ritual incorporation of divine law and the ritual restoration of divine balance. So through ritual, we incorporate those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to harmonize our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine order. And through ritual, we restore balance. We reject those things, objects, deeds, and entities we need to reject, repel, to hate in order to bring balance, restore balance to our lives. So law and hate, the expression of order and the impression of order, operationalized through purification, Ojida, and then we can engage in ritual practice to incorporate law and restore balance to our lives. That is the essence of Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, which we call, of course, Nanasom. And Nanasom or Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion animates Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture or African culture. The religion is the foundation of the culture. So if you do not understand the ancestral religion, then you do not understand Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit culture. So this is why we go into detail about Nanasom, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral religion, and its purification, Ojida, on Ojida Dao Tuesday, Benada, Abenada. And we go through various aspects of the culture, dealing with text from ancient Kemet and various other aspects of the culture, and show how everything is relevant to our development, our cultivation, and our sustenance today. So these are the three shows that we deal with on a weekly basis. We will be sending out a notification for the guests who will be on tomorrow's show. Okay, and for the new people who came in, if you look in the chat room, you'll see that we posted OBARIMA, Afurakani Manhood, MMARA, Divine Law, and Divine Hate. You can download the ebook versions of those books. Those are two of our books. We have 15 books available in soft cover, which we print. We publish our own books, of course. We print in color in-house on our own printers. We also have them available as ebooks. The ebook versions, which is the entire book, are on the website as free downloads. So all of our books are free. In addition to that, we have over 60 articles we have published. All of those are free as well. We have like over 60 broadcast archives from Blog Talk Radio, which you can download, and we also have about 52 videos on YouTube. All of the links you can find at the Odwirafo website. You can download the books for free. Of course, you can purchase softcover versions if you want to support our work, and those only range between $8 and $11. That's the price range. If you order 10 or more, like a 10-book set or 11-book set or a 12-book set or even a whole 15-book set, which some people prefer to do to save on shipping, 10 books or more, no matter what the combination of titles, is automatically 30% off, and we have that, of course, on the website as well. So you can go to the MMARA, Divine Law and Divine Hate, and the OBARIMA, Afurakani Manhood. We're going to go into detail on certain aspects of those two texts tonight. We titled the broadcast Neverlution versus Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Revolution, Resolution. So there's a difference between manner in which the whites and their offspring titled, define, and approach so-called revolution, which is pseudo-revolution, and our people who follow in their footsteps, claiming to embrace something revolutionary, and at the end of the day, what we have is Neverlution and Neverlutionary, because nothing has happened. Obviously, when we look at every 28 hours on average, a black male in America is gunned down by the police. And of course, we know about what happened with Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, and a number of different individuals on a regular basis. But every 28 hours, a black male is gunned down, murdered by police in America. That's hundreds of males on a yearly basis gunned down consistently. This is just another form of lynching. Now, if you look at the numbers out of the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of police officers in the United States, if you were to ask the question, how many of them have been killed in the line of duty? If you look at last year, the statistics suggest and say that in the whole year, the number of police officers who were gunned down in the line of duty or died in the line of duty, 27 in the entire country. And some of those were, car crashes. Of course, some of those were black people. Many of them were not killed in the line of duty by black people. How many black people have killed police officers in the line of duty over the past year? Maybe 2, 3. How many police officers have gunned down black males and females over the past year? Hundreds of our people have been gunned down on a consistent basis, on a regular basis, on a yearly basis. Now, you have people talking about revolutionary action. You can't be in the revolution for 50 years. You can't say, well, what we did in the 60s and when the revolution comes. You can't say when the revolution comes for 50 years or 40 years or 30 years or 10 years or 5 years. You can't say, well, once that revolution jumps off, I'm going to be ready. The whites and their offspring understand that they have made you impotent, so you would rather talk about certain things, talk about revolution, but deep down inside you fear the whites and their offspring because they control your mind. And when you're fearful of them, then you make all kinds of platitudes, you make all kinds of declarations, but in reality, you have no desire to actually move on something that's actually effective. If you look back to the past 100 plus years since the end, right after the end of so-called emancipation, we talk about the statistics that's widely quoted. Near the end of enslavement, of course, before emancipation, 98% of black people worked for the whites and their offspring, obviously during the enslavement period. Now you look at today, and you look at those numbers, you'll find that 98% of black people work for white people today. So what has really changed since we've been here? We were working for them at a level of over 98% during enslavement, and we're still working for them at a level of over 98% in the present day, in the present moment. We are no closer to independence, sovereignty on our own land, self-governing, self-ruling. We're no closer to that today than we were right after emancipation, so-called emancipation. In reality, liberation came from not the Emancipation Proclamation, but liberation came when people like Okufo, a warrior, Nat, often called Nat Turner, waged war against the whites and their offspring and slaughtered the whites and their offspring. And many other Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit men and women began to massacre the whites and their offspring on plantations, set the plantations on fire, and began to free other enslaved Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, and escape and establish independent nations in North America, in the Southeast United States, in the West, building black towns and so forth, and defending them with metal armaments, but also chemical and biological weapons of warfare. And we're going to get into that. So because we were engaged in these processes and began to kill the whites and their offspring, that's when they were forced into the posture of emancipation. But when they were forced into that posture to pretend like they were engaged in some magnanimous act, they were also plotting to enslave us mentally, primarily through Christianity and, of course, pseudo-educational system, later Jim Crow and so forth, and everything that comes after that, integration and everything else. So, but it was because of our actions that liberation took place. Pseudo-emancipation comes along. Our people, those who are intelligent, they began to establish black towns, engage in nation building to the best of their capacity based on what they knew and what they understood. Some of our people were focused and intelligent. Some of our people were brainwashed, but they were still trying to be independent. Now, you look at that period, and you look at us today, the idea of establishing a black town to the average black person in America is insane because we've been so brainwashed. We don't want to have anything to do with that. We don't even want to consider that. If somebody says some of our people should establish an independent settlement nation on the continent of Afuraitkaitnit so we can be self-governing, self-ruling, sovereign and independent and able to defend our sovereignty, the average black person would say they wouldn't want to have anything at all to do with that. That's the furthest thing from their mind. They just want to survive and hope that the whites and their offspring will not molest them too much. And then maybe when they make their transition and die, they can go to heaven and so forth and see the fictional white God. So most of our people are still locked down in that mentality. Obviously, the events dealing with Mike Brown and other events are bringing to the surface that ancestral urge and mandate for us to reorient our thinking back to reality. When we begin to do that, we begin to shake this foolish notion of what is really Neverlution. People talking a lot about what they're going to do and what they want to see and so forth, but deep down inside they fear the whites and their offspring. What we're going to talk about is what is real revolution and resolution. Two halves of a divine whole. When you have a proper orientation, if you have a problem, then you need to use intelligence. So we drop for a second. If you're in the chat room, send us a message right quick to let us know that you can hear us clearly, and you can let us know that we're back on. Anybody in the chat room, just send that message real quick, and we'll move forward. Sometimes, as people who have listened to Blog Talk, listen to Blog Talk, every now and then, Blog Talk system will drop. When we call back in, it comes right back up. And when you listen to the broadcast later on, that empty space you won't even hear because it contracts that. So we're saying when you have a problem, you must use wisdom, intelligence to diagnose the problem, see what the issue is, and then find a remedy that's harmonious that resolves the issue. You need to go back into your reservoir of knowledge, access what you need, examine the problem, diagnose the problem, extract the remedy, and then apply the remedy so you can have a resolution. Revolution and resolution are two halves of a whole. That whole, which in our Akhan culture is called Nyansa, means wisdom. We're talking about divine wisdom. Wisdom is composed of two complementary wholes, revolution and resolution. The expansive pole of wisdom, the contractive pole of wisdom. Wisdom is governed by two divinities, forces in nature, Tahuti and Sofit Yabut, also called Seshat, the male and female divine forces of wisdom. Whenever we try to attune to the nature of something, what is true, what is accurate, what undergirds a specific individual, entity, or event in creation, what we're doing is we're provoking the energy, just like you send some energy to somebody, or you engaged in quote-unquote martial arts and you use your hands to provoke or push it, send life force energy to someone when you're engaged in battle and so forth. When you're engaged in ritual prayer and so forth, you're sending forth vibrations, energy. Anytime we seek to know something, we are provoking the energy, provoking the consciousness of Tahuti and of Sesha, called Brechiri Hunuate and Aberiwa in Akhan tradition. That's who we're invoking. And then we pull the information down that they give to us. Nothing is new, obviously. All wisdom is held by Inyamewa, Inyame, Amenet, Amen, through the agency of Tahuti and Seshat, Brechiri Hunuate and Abrewa. So anytime we want to access the wisdom or knowledge of what is in the universe, in the creation, in a specific event, no matter what it is, all we're doing is provoking them and receiving the information that they transmit to us. So the basis of wisdom is being able to be receptive to the forces that govern and undergird the knowledge of all things. This is why wisdom has to do with revolution and resolution. Now, we're talking about remedies. You have a problem, you use wisdom to find out what a proper diagnosis is, and then you resolve the issue. You don't march and protest and get upset and become frustrated and simply express frustration. You find what the issue is, what the real issue is, find out a real solution, and you act on the solution. In the immediate present and the near future and on after that, with regard to the whites and their offspring gunning down black people, like we have said before, we say always, we say now, we will always say, the only way that the whites and their offspring will stop killing Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people or black people is when black people kill the whites and their offspring. White police will stop killing black people when black people kill the police. That is the only thing that will stop police killing us. The only thing that Wilson deserves or Zimmerman deserves is death, to be killed by the black community. That is the only thing they deserve. No trials and all the other nonsense. No marching and protesting for fairness and justice. When a murderer kills your people, then your people kill the murderer. They hunt the murderer down and they kill the murderer. Until that happens, nothing will change. But when that happens, things will begin to change overnight. And when we say happens, we mean consistent. Every time a white police officer decides that they want to murder a black person, they should be thinking in their mind that if they pull the trigger, it is absolutely certain, 100%, that they will be killed. They will never get away with murdering our people. When we get back to that level of intelligence, then every time they even think about trying to murder one of our people, they know they will be signing their own death certificate at that moment. They will make different decisions. If some of them go ahead, then they will be taken out by the community. When we start thinking back on that level, recognizing that the penalty of death is the only thing that these crackers deserve, and we execute and exact that penalty consistently, then things will change. Until then, we don't walk around marching, complaining, being frustrated. Some people are venting, but they're acting. Some people are preparing and waging some war, and you see some of that around the country. Other people are simply frustrated, but they still fear the whites and their offspring. If they didn't fear the whites and their offspring, they would have a different mindset. They wouldn't be saying, hands up, don't shoot. They would be saying, shoot back. and you would see a bunch of dead police all over the street instead of the police shooting at our people, throwing bombs at our people, tear gas, all kinds of things. So when we change our mindset, then we will be in control of the situation. How do we change that mindset? First, we have to break out of the nonsense that's been controlling our minds for the past 100+ years. Socialism is not revolution. Embracing the whites and their offspring and their pseudo-philosophies is not revolution. Reading Karl Marx and Lenin and Mao Zedong and Gaddafi's Green Book and that kind of nonsense is not revolution. If you respect yourself and understand who you are and respect your ancestresses and ancestors, then you will recognize beyond just speaking about it and pontificating about it and talking about the great civilizations that we built thousands of years ago, you'll understand that the foundation of a civilization in our culture is the ancestral religion, which gives birth to the harmonious culture that we build, and within that culture are mechanisms to defend ourselves and maintain our sovereignty. So you will look into your own ancestral culture for remedy for issues that are confronting the community. You won't look outside of your culture for remedy. You won't say, oh, we're such a great people, but as soon as you have a problem, you're looking to the Chinese, looking for a philosophy to address an issue. Looking to the whites and their offspring to define what the issue is for you, and they'll define race right out of the issue and tell you it's all about class. And when you deal with the class issue, then the race issue will be taken care of. That's pure idiocy. And that's notion that someone is enslaved. It's a proof that someone's enslaved. So we have to get back to reality. When we embrace our culture, we embrace divine order. Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, ancestral culture is the divine acceptance or law or love of order and the divine rejection of disorder, the divine hatred of disorder. Maranechi, divine law and divine hate. So we get into detail in this whole book. Maranechi is about divine law and divine hate. Two halves of the same great divine whole, which is order. In Sheshe, in Akhan culture, means order or arrangement. Nyame and Sheshe is the divine order. Nyame is the great God. Nyame is the great goddess. They are Amen and Amenat. Amen and Amenet and Shikamet. Nyame in the Akhan tradition, Lisa and Mawu in the Vodun tradition, and so forth. So Nyame in Sheshe is the divine order or the arrangement in Sheshe of Inyamewa and Inyame. It's the same as Amenet, Amen, Sesher, and ancient Kemet. Sesher means a plan, order, or arrangement. So the same term, Sesher, is the same term we use in Akhan in Sheshe, which means order or arrangement. Divine order is composed of two complementary poles. The expansive pole of order is law, which is the same word and concept as love in our culture. When you're in love with an object or entity, you're in law with that individual or entity. That means your relationship or your interaction with that entity is a reflection of divine order. So that's an expression of divine order. So it's a lawful relationship or a relationship that is expressive of divine order. Your interactions with that individual or entity is an expression of order. It's a lawful relationship or a quote-unquote loveful relationship. In the book, we show that the term love and the term law is the same word in our ancient languages. It's the same concept. So divine law, which is the same as love, is the expansive pole of divine order. Divine hate, chi, is the contractive pole of divine order. Through hate, we reject and repel disorder for the maintenance and the maintaining of the integrity of divine order. So your immune system is a divine hate vehicle, and the lymphatic system is a hate vehicle within your body. It destroys cancer cells to preserve the integrity of the body. and you want your immune system and lymphatic system cells to go out and kill the cancerous cells. And if your immune system is compromised, you do whatever you can, taking medicine, engaging in healthy activities so you can strengthen and boost your immune system so that it can continue its work of killing on a daily basis, seeking out and killing the cancerous cells, the parasites, toxins, the perverse bacteria, so that your organism can be maintained in divine order. So the foolish notion that hate is wrong or evil or a lower level of energy or an emotion is pure stupidity forced on us by the whites and our offspring, because they do not want us to embrace divine hate. Because when we embrace divine hate, we reject this order. That means we reject them, and we will not allow them to engage in these kinds of activities. When they come against us, when we have divine hate, we are already prepared to execute them, as opposed to trying to embrace them or figure out a way to get rid of racism. We're not seeking to get rid of racism. We seek to get rid of the racists. We don't care about racism. We preserve ourselves and we eradicate our enemies. So you're dealing with law and hate. Law is composed of two poles as well. The male and female aspects or divinities that govern law and creation are Ma'al and Ma'at. Ma'at is the female principle force in nature that maintains law and balance in creation. The male divinity, Ma'al, is the male principle force in nature that maintains law and balance in creation. You can see a residual effect of their energy simply through balance and equilibrium on the planet Earth. When you can take two objects. You can take a penny, you can take a bowling ball, you can hold them up at the same height and let them go at the exact same time, and you'll see that the penny and the bowling ball will hit the ground at the same time. Because the law of gravity, the law of equilibrium, will keep them equilibrated as they fall. It doesn't matter that the bowling ball is much larger and much heavier, and the penny is much smaller and much lighter. They will be equalized and balanced through the law. And that's a residual effect of that force operating in the planet. We can attune our Ba and Ba'et, our divine living energy, to that force so that we can balance our thoughts, intentions, and actions with divine law so we can make proper decisions to take care of what we need to take care of in the present and see around the corner into future situations that are unfolding and developing and being shaped so we can make proper decisions, so we can live in harmony with order and avoid negative circumstances which we do not have to encounter if we attune ourselves to these forces in nature so we can attune to them and communicate with them and be guided by them. We can do that because we have a Ba and Ba'et, a Bra, divine living energy. We can attach to their energy, just like these forces in nature can possess us during ritual practices. They can also communicate, and they do communicate with us so we can attune to what is lawful, what is in balance, what is in equilibrium in every situation in life, and then we can make proper decisions. Link our energy with theirs, and we can link our consciousness to theirs because we have a Ka, a Ka'ed, a Krawa, a soul, a divine consciousness. Only Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people can do that, and therefore we can attune to the forces of divine order in creation, which is what the deities are. The spiritual forces that animate the sun, moon, planets, earth mother, rivers, oceans, all of the created universe. These forces that animate the physical aspects of the physical universe are the forces in nature. They're the children of the Supreme Being, just like we must live in harmony physically with the earth mother. We must live in harmony with the sun. We need energy from the sun or we won't survive. We need the water of the oceans and rivers or we won't survive. We need the air from the atmosphere or we won't survive. We need what is within the earth mother, copper, iron, zinc, magnesium, fruits and vegetables that emerge from her, or we won't survive. Physically, our spirits need to attune to the spirits that animate the earth mother, the spirit that animates the atmosphere, the wind in the atmosphere, and so forth. the spiritual forces that animate the sun. They feed our spirit body just like the physical aspect of the sun feeds our physical body. The physical aspect of the moon and its magnetism balances our physical body and affects our tides, the rising and lowering of the water in our body. But the spirit, the abosom, the forces of nature that animate the moon, stimulate our spirit body in the same fashion. Our physical bodies are dependent on the physical bodies of the created universe. Our spirit bodies, our sunsum, are dependent upon the sunsum, the spirits of the abosom, the forces of nature, the orisha that govern every aspect of the universe. This is how we live in harmony with creation. And when mistakes happen, when we make mistakes, then we attune to the forces in creation that are orderly, that move in harmony with order. We get back in that flow of order and take that order that we have extracted and apply it and reorder our lives. That includes not only cultivation, but it also includes eradication. So when we talk about revolution and resolution, and we talk about nation building, we're talking about various aspects of nation building and culture and activities and things we're engaged in, but we also talk about weaponizing every aspect of our culture so we can use every aspect of our culture to defend ourselves just like we can use it to cultivate ourselves. We can go into the forest and learn plant life, animal life, mineral life, and extract what we need to create medicines to cure all kinds of disease. And people are naturally inclined to attune to those forces in nature. For example, like George Washington Carver was able to go into the forest, go into the woods, communicate with nature, as he said, grab those lessons and replicate what he learned in the laboratory and transform agriculture in the United States. But just like he was able to do that, and we can do the same thing, and we've been doing this for thousands of years, we can also go into the same forest, not only learn what herbs we need to heal ourselves, but what combinations of herbs and minerals we can use to weaponize that information so we can kill our enemies. Chemical and biological warfare, germ warfare, immunotoxicology. We did that on the plantation. Poison the food supply of the White Narrow Spring and the Big House, poison the water supply, and routed them. So every aspect of our culture can be weaponized. So we're going to get into that. So let's get into, we talked about Maranechi, divine law and divine hate. Now let's get into what revolution is and what resolution is, the two halves of the divine whole, so we can reorient our thinking properly. Obviously, what we have been doing for the past 100 years, no matter what organization people are talking about, has not worked, because we are no closer to any form of independence, self-rule, self-governance, and the maintenance of that sovereignty through defense. We're no closer to that today than we were 100 years ago. And in fact, we're much further away from it culturally and psychologically, spiritually, than we were 100 years ago. So whatever people have been doing has not been working. So obviously we need to get back to basics. We need to engage in a real revolution and resolution. So let's look at that and what it really is, reorient our minds, and then move forward, because we have solutions. We have immediate solutions, which we already talked about. When the White Narrow Spring murder our people kill the White Narrow Spring, period. Until we move forward in that fashion, everything else is a waste of time to talk about. We lay out principles, and people are led by their own crowd that's within their own bodies to make decisions about when they're going to move and when they're going to act, how they're going to move and how they're going to act. And nobody can track that. White Narrow Spring can't track when your Nsamaf or when your crowd is going to direct you on one day in one moment to get up and exact justice. That cannot be stopped. They can't track what's going on inside of your head. This is why they want to keep you away from ancestral religion. Because when you reconnect with who you are, then you're guided by your own cry, your own soul, your own divine consciousness. You're guided by your own Nsamanfo, your ancestresses and ancestors who are connected to you by blood. And when you're motivated and urged and moved to act, they can't tell when that's going to happen because you're not talking about it on Facebook. You're not talking about it to other people in your immediate surroundings. You're only communicating what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it directly with your own info. And then when you do it, it's a surprise because nobody knows when it's going to happen. So let's get into reorienting our focus so we can put these kinds of solutions in place. The immediate solutions, midterm solutions, and long-term solutions with regard to institutionalizing our values, establishing what we need to establish, and defending that. If you look at Marinetchi, Divine Law and Divine Hate, the book, you can download the book for the people who came in a little bit later. We posted the link in the chat room, Marinetchi, Divine Law and Divine Hate, Part 3, on page 26. We want to show some of the things we've already been talking about, and we give some etymological origins of specific terms. You'll see that we talked about Nyame wa Nyame and Sheshe. We talked about Nyansa, meaning wisdom or intelligence in the tree, language. We went into a little bit about Ma'a and Ma'at, talking about the divine law and balance, called Omame and Akhan and Abam and Akhan. The divine pole of divine hate, Heru Behudet and Sechima, the two divinities called Benna and Abena in the Akhan tradition, Ogun and Iyami Abeni in the Yoruba tradition. These forces in nature are the male and female forces of divine hate, literally. They have hate as part of their titles. We trace the word hate. It's not a European word. It's not from the Proto-Indo-European language family. It comes directly from ancient Kemet. And in the book, we show the Medusa, the hieroglyphs that prove that that's the origin of the word, and that those same words are also part of the titles of Heru Behudet and Sechima Sekhmet, because they are the male and female deities, God and goddess of hate. Just like you have a God and goddess of law or love, you have a God and goddess of hate, divine hate. It's a divine force in creation, male and female force. So we talk about them as well in here in the first portion, but then we talk about San, Net San, return and resolve, revolution and resolution. So we give a definition. We have to give a proper definition of what revolution is and what resolution is, which we have not been given based on our culture, which is thousands of years old. So these lessons are thousands of years old and written into our sum, written into our spirit, written into our krawa, our soul, is incarnate within us. So we're just unearthing what's already ours. A revolution is a complete return. The word is composed of re, meaning back or again, and the root vol, meaning to turn or to roll. To revolve is to return or turn back. When Earth moves around sun and returns to its point of origin, it has made a complete revolution. When an Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit individual has made a complete revolution, he or she has returned to his or her point of origin or his or her original nature or condition. In the tree language, the term san means to repeat an act, to return. The often repeated sanko fa means to san, return, ka, go, and fa, grass. And the ebe or proverb associated with sanko fa is sewo werifi nawo sanko fa yen chi, which means if you return and you go and grasp from your ancestral past, it is not hated, it is not hateful, it is not taboo, it is truly best. And this is why that is often repeated in our Akhan culture. The ebe or the proverb of divine wisdom teaching, ancestral teaching, refers to the act of returning spiritually and or physically to go and grasp from the values of your ancestral past in order to resolve or bring resolution to conflict in the present. We talk about, and we say, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, recognize that it is in our ancestral past that we find the answers to our problems. For the further that we go back in time, the closer we come to those first Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit who were created by Inyamewa Inyame and who first established Inyamewa Inyame and Sheshe, divine order in every aspect of their lives. They were the first to establish civilization, a social order rooted in the divine order of nature. So they were the first to become Nananum Mpanyinfo because they cultivated themselves in that fashion, spiritually cultivated elders and eldresses, and they became the first Nananum Nsamafo, a spiritually cultivated class of ancestresses and ancestors. So that's a return, son to return. We've been the furthest removed from Afuraitkaitnit physically because of the mutual Kwesi, the great perversity, the enslavement, and the forced migration to the Western Hemisphere. We've been the furthest removed culturally from Afuraitkaitnit because of our conditioning in the Western Hemisphere. So for us, our son or our return is to return all the way back to the pact that we made with Inyamewa Inyame before we were born into the world. As an Afuraitkaitnit person, a spirit in the ancestral realm, before you are sent into a womb to return through your descendants into the world, and all of us here, all of you listening, you are an ancestor or an ancestress who has returned through your blood circle. That means you have lived before. You have returned to the world through Bebra, the Akhan term for reincarnation, into your blood circle, your Abusia, your blood circle, once again to live in the world. But you have been here in the past and you made your transition. When you made your transition, you are living as one of the Nsamafo, an ancestral spirit in the ancestral realm. At some point, it was time for you to return through your blood circle. But before that happens, your spirit is drawn to Inyamewa Inyame, Amenet and Amen, Mawu and Lisa. You're infused with a Kra, a soul, a divine consciousness, a Krawa, a deity that's attached to you and assigned to you by the Supreme Being that guides you throughout your life. And that force, that divinity, whether it's a male divinity or a female divinity, is seated in the head region. And you experience that force throughout your life, pulling you in the head region towards thoughts, intentions, and actions, decisions that are in harmony with divine order. And as you develop yourself spiritually, you communicate with that force and consult with that divinity, your own personal divinity within your head region. That deity that guides you, that was assigned to you and is a messenger of the Supreme Being directly for you, that dwells with you. If you go against that force in your head region, you notice that it pulls you in one direction and you make decisions that go in the other direction, and you have chaos in your life until you realign with that force in your head region. That's your Kra. That's assigned to you pre-incarnation. Encoded within that force is your function in the world. You are a cell within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, and you have a function to execute in this great divine body. Just like every cell in your body has a function to execute inside your Kra or your spirit's brain, which is what it is like. Encoded with that is what your specific function is. Many of you are immune system cells within the great divine body, so you're naturally inclined towards seeking out and destroying the cancerous cells that manifest in the divine body. So when they manifest in the community, manifest in the world, start leeching off of or attacking the community, then you're naturally inclined to isolate them and eradicate them, because your immune system cells within the great divine body of the Supreme Being, just like your immune system cells, do the same thing in your body on a regular basis. But some people have that function. You have that function because it's encoded within your Kra, your spirit's brain, pre-incarnation. And because you have that function and it's encoded within your spiritual brain, Inyamewa and Inyame also assign specific forces in creation that have the energy that will allow you to carry out that function. They'll assign a fiery force in nature so that you can carry out that function that's written into your soul, written into your Kra. You're not going to be given a function without giving the kind of energy you need to execute that function. So you'll come into the world, you have a specific function written into your spiritual head, and then you'll have and manifest a certain kind of energy that was assigned to you pre-incarnation. You're a child of a fiery abosom, a fiery orisha, a fiery voodoo. And you'll draw on that energy to execute your function that's written into your spiritual head. So that's how you come into the world. You assign those things pre-incarnation, then you are sent into a womb, and then you're born into the world. That happens when we come reincarnate. So even though we come through a great deal of blood mixture on the plantations, in the dungeons, on the boats, through generations, intergenerationally, and we are a little bit lighter brown, you're the same ancestral spirit who pre-incarnation was assigned certain forces in nature sent through a blood circle. You may have been perfectly black, perfectly brown in your previous lifetime when you were living on the continent, but because of what happened to your descendants in America, or you may have been enslaved in America, because of what happened to your descendants, generation after generation, you saw a pollution of the blood circle. So now that you reincarnate through your blood circle, this time you come out, you're lighter brown, but you're the same spirit that was living on the continent before, the same spirit that was snatched up from the continent and forced into enslavement, and you waged war against the whites and offspring and cut their heads off before you died, before you returned to the ancestral realm. You may be lighter brown now, but you're the same spirit connected to the same abosom. So you may not know when you're growing up who you actually are, but your Kra knows because it's written into your Kra. You have an ancestral memory of having lived as part of a specific culture on the continent. So when we say Sanko Fa, return, go on grass, we go all the way back to that original pact we made with the Supreme Being. What is our function in creation? What kind of energy has been assigned to us that we need to develop? Our responsibility, our asediye, to develop those talents, that energy we have so we can execute our function. Return back to that original pact. That's going back to our point of origin. When Earth moves around the sun, when Asate moves around the ODWIRA and returns to its point of origin, it has made a complete revolution. And that's what we just did. When you go back to that pact, when you attune to your own crowd ritually, attune to your nananom and saman for your ancestors as an ancestor, to relearn what is your function in the world, why did you come into the world, and what kind of energy have you been given to execute that function in the world. You find that out, that's a revolution. And once you find that out, then you're going to take the energy you've been given, the directives you've been given, and execute them in the world. And that's resolution. And that's spiritual, but it's also physical. So when we talk about here, we talk about that specific function we're given. That's the Nkrabeya in Akhan, the Nkra and Nkrabeya, the divine function you were given in the world. So we say when we return San to our ancestral consciousness and are fed from it, we fully and properly expand our awareness of our position in creation and how to negotiate that position in harmony with Inyamewa, Inyame, and Sheshe. This is the expansive nature of Nyansa, of wisdom. Our awareness expands when we return to that reservoir of knowledge, when we go back to Inyamewa, Inyame, attune to the Supreme Being, attune to the crowd, the soul that was given to us, and find out who we are, what our function in the world is, what our position in creation is, and how we need to execute that function in the world. Once we return to that knowledge, our sphere of awareness expands. This is the expansive pole of Nyansa, or wisdom. Revolution, to return. Go back to your point of origin. Revolve, return, turn back, go back to the source so you can grab what you need, and then you're going to use what you have taken to affect change, not just spiritually, but physically in the world, in the community, and in the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit world. Next, we say a resolution is a complete rectification. The word is composed of re, meaning back or again as the root, solve, meaning to loosen, to unravel. It includes the notion of to free, or to free from restraint, to vindicate, to clear, to restore, to return to the former state. To resolve is to reduce something back to its former state, its natural form. Resolution. A second meaning in the tree language for the term san is to loosen, to unfasten, to unravel. Once we have expanded our awareness of what is true, Nokwade, of our function in the world, our relationship to the Supreme Being, and so forth, through engaging San, which means to return or revolt. We then engage in the second aspect of San, which is to unravel, in order to loosen, unravel, to break up the hold that disorder has taken over our lives. When you have a knot, you unravel the knot. You loosen or you unravel it. This is what we're talking about. We move to unravel the knots, which have blocked the free flow of consciousness and energy necessary for the execution of our function in the world. When somebody's trying to keep you from living, keep you from executing your function, living harmoniously in the world, they're blocking you, trying to restrain you, tie you up, then the resolution is to unravel that, eradicate the one who's tying you up, unravel the knots, break free, and vindicate yourself. So we move to eradicate the disorder for good. We restore our condition to its former orderly state. We have effected a complete resolution. When Earth, through revolution, transmits its power through the seasons, it has brought about a complete resolution. When we take the consciousness and energy that we have acquired through revolution and expend it for the purpose of achieving resolution, we vindicate ourselves and our condition. We restore Nsheshe. This is the contractive nature of Nyansa. Nyansa is wisdom or divine intelligence. The expansive pole is revolution. The contractive pole is resolution. Through revolution, we expand our awareness of what our function is, who we are, how we are to operate, and how we are to move in creation. Through resolution, we take that knowledge and we return or restore our former state of being from what it is presently, because someone is trying to tie us up, bind us, enslave us in a certain way of acting, moving, and thinking, so forth. We must loosen, unravel, and break free from that, spiritually, but also physically. So this is why we say through revolution, we san or return to our original state, our point of origin, our well of consciousness, energy, and ancestral experience, to arm ourselves with the necessities, weapons necessary to rectify conflict. Through resolution, we san or resolve, restore the life situation to its natural form, former state of harmony with creation. We restore our life circumstances to their former orderly state, the state in which they existed before the interruption of disorder. And the whites and their offspring are spirits that incarnate as spirits of disorder, all of them. White Americans, white Europeans, white Arabs, white Hindus, white Hispanics, white Latinos, white Latinas, white pseudo-Native Americans, white Asians, and so forth, all non-black people are the whites and their offspring, and they incarnate as spirits of disorder. That is an irrefutable fact, and it is unyielding and uncompromising. There is no exception to that rule. It never has been and never will be until they become extinct. So in that san, in that return, we eradicate blockages to our own awareness. In that san, in that resolve, restoration, we eradicate impediments, people or situations, to our ability to execute our Nkrabia or our divine function. So that's the basis of san nesan, revolution, resolution. In Nyansa, divine wisdom is composed of the expansive and contractive poles. This is why we break up Nyansa into Nyan, which means to awaken. San means to cut or to pierce into. We go into some detail about the etymologies there. Then we talk about this notion of when you understand expansion and contraction, breathing, inhaling, and exhaling, that means we engage in san to return, san to resolve. There's a balance. That's an understanding. That's different from what the whites and their offspring are talking about. They don't have an original state that they're trying to return back to, because they were never in the state of order in the first place. So they have nothing to return to. They have nothing to resolve. They are cancerous cells just seeking to consume and destroy and survive and leach in a parasitic fashion off of the natural host until they can either consume and kill the host or they are killed themselves. And they move throughout the body of black humanity from Southern Europe all the way through Afuraitkaitnit, the so-called Near East, the East, Australia, North Central and South America, and the Caribbean, like the cancerous cells that they are, consuming everything in their path when they were allowed to do so. If you look on this page 28, we talk about that process, and then we go into some detail. We talk about being revolutionary and resolutionary. One cannot simply be a revolutionary and be complete, yet not have a true goal to eradicate disorder and its purveyors and restore order through resolution. If you're just trying to fight, but the goal is not to eradicate disorder and its purveyors, then you're not complete. One cannot simply focus on solutions, on the other hand, and be a resolutionary and be complete. You have no understanding of the value nor possess the courage to fight, engage, and revolt. Revolution and resolution are two halves of the divine whole of a Nyansa. One cannot truly be revolutionary without being a resolutionary. One cannot truly be a resolutionary without being a revolutionary. And if you don't understand your culture and the foundation of what revolution is, and resolution is as posed with divine wisdom, then you're neither. What you are is what we see, which are neverlutionary. Neverlution is what people are engaged in because nothing is ever happening. And we seek and will reverse all of that. So we go into detail about that. We talk about it as the Aakhuamuman, the spirits of disorder, the whites and their offspring, who promote the imbalance idea that we are in the struggle, we are in the revolution is coming, while the balanced notion of we are ending the struggle, we are in the resolution is here, is never addressed. So many misguided Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit have followed the perverse pattern of thinking in imitation of white pseudo-revolutionary. Now, if you look, and we go into some detail also, just to skip down a bit, whites and offspring, as we said, cannot be revolutionaries or resolutionaries. They can't return to an original pact they have with the Supreme Being because they do not have one. They're not in attunement with order. They can't engage in resolution and return things to a ordered state, a former orderly state, because it was never orderly as long as they've been in the world. So they cannot revolt against disorder. They cannot resolve and bring back balance and restore order, because they are not part of a divine order. Just like cancer cells can't return to a divinely ordered state, they are perverse, disfigured cells that must be eradicated. So we talk about their incapability. They don't have that capacity. We talk about the difference between revolution. They engage in revulsion. To revolt is to tear, pull away, to tear something back. They're not resolutionaries. They don't engage in resolution or restoration of order. They engage in repression. So revulsion is the perversion of resolution. Repression is the perversion of resolution. So it's cosmologically and spiritually impossible for the whites and their offspring to be revolutionaries or resolutionaries because they cannot attune to divine wisdom. They're not trying to attune to an orderly state of being, because if they were, they would all commit mass suicide. That's the only thing they could do to restore order with regard to their behavior, is to eradicate themselves, which they will not do, just like cancerous cells will not do that. They must be eradicated, because they will not eradicate themselves. Parasites don't do that. So we go into detail about that, but then there's also key. There's a fundamental cosmological basis for wisdom, divine wisdom, being composed of two poles, revolution and resolution, governed by the divinities of wisdom. And when you have that as your foundation, then your thoughts, your intentions, and actions are intelligent. Then when you engage a nation-building process, You would not, as we said, only utilize things in one capacity. For example, learning medicine, learning herbs to heal, then you'll automatically find out all the various uses of the herbs. So somebody may use metal armaments to wage war against the whites and their offspring. You have somebody else who's naturally inclined to go into the forest and learn about herbs for healing, but that same individual will now go into the forest or the laboratory and utilize these herbs, this plant life, this mineral life, to wage chemical and biological warfare and weaponize their knowledge. You don't have that focus if you don't understand revolution and resolution. All you will focus on is what the whites and their offspring make you focus on. And they make you focus on the fact that they have all the tanks, they have all the bombs, they have all the guns, they have everything, and they strike fear into your heart if you don't have courage because you're embracing their foolish paradigm. When you step outside that foolish paradigm, then everything is open to you. Because it doesn't matter if somebody has tanks, it doesn't matter if they have bombs, it doesn't matter if they have tear gas, it doesn't matter if they have riot gear, because when millions of them can be taken out by a bacterium, by a pandemic, by a real pandemic or epidemic, a water supply being poisoned, food supply being poisoned, and so forth, then all the tanks and bombs don't mean anything when everybody is laid out, dying, sick, falling out by the thousands. That's more effective, by the millions even. That's more effective than any armament that you can deal with. They don't want you thinking on that level. Of course, it's too late now because you are thinking on that level. But they never wanted us to get back to thinking on that level. But when you're attuned to divine wisdom, you don't only use things to make your present life more efficient, but part of that efficiency is how to eradicate your enemies and weaponize every aspect of your knowledge. Where does that kind of wisdom come from? Where you utilize wisdom to destroy your enemy. When you look at the deities of divine wisdom and understand their actual function, then you understand they always support the killing of the enemy. Before we even look at their names and break that information down, we're just going to read something about Tahuti. People talk about Tahuti. We call Brechiri Hunuate in Akhan. He's called Orun Mila in the Yoruba tradition. They always talk about him as the divine wisdom. Of course, that's what he is. They talk about him being peaceful and focused and wise and an elder and so forth. When we talk about he supports the killing of the enemy, they would say, oh, well, no, divine wisdom has nothing to do with that. That's lower level lust and passion. The deity of divine wisdom, the mouthpiece of Supreme Being, has nothing to do with exacting revenge on the enemy. They don't operate that way, and Tahuti is not about that. This is what the whites and their offspring, the criminals, will teach you. And the brainwashed Negroes on the continent who practice a corrupt form of ancestral religion, and those in the Western Hemisphere who have been trained by these corrupt individuals will tell you the same thing, and those who've been corrupted here in America and would like to bring that corruption into the practice of ancestral religion will tell you the same thing. However, when you communicate with Tahuti yourself, communicate with Teshat yourself, you'll find they always support the killing of the enemy, the destruction of the purveyors of disorder. And even if you look back to the most ancient religious texts in the world, the Meru text, the pyramid text, you will find support of that, and in texts throughout the time period of dynastic Kemet as well. Let's read something from the pyramid text, which we read in a previous broadcast, but we'll bring this out about Tahuti just so you can see. So if you look at translations from the pyramid text of Pepi the First, Mer and Ra, and Pepi the Second. And he's talking about, of course, the king who makes his transition. He's going to become an ancestor, a powerful ancestor. He's going to follow in the footsteps of Alzar. When Alzar went to the spirit realm, he became purified and so forth. and we're going to read a section from this so you can see. And they talk about, just like All-Star gets associated with the star system, Sa, which is Orion, which we talked about in the previous broadcast, you'll see. It says, and he's talking about the dead, talking about Hepi at this point. It says, your arm is to Offset, Hepi, and the palm of your hand is to Nebuhet. And you go forward between them. Heaven is to you, earth is to you, the Sekhet Aru, the ancestral divine fields of offerings are to you. You've taken the hand of Offset and Nebuhet, and they're guiding you into the ancestral realm in a harmonious fashion. You become like All-Star. You become an honored ancestor. Now, you're going through the divine fields of offerings, the Sekhet Aru, and they belong to you because All-Stars are sovereign or ruler in the spirit realm. And now Hepi, when he makes his transition, he's identifying with All-Star and going through the same process. So Offset and Nebuhet come along and take his hand and guide him through the ancestral realm. Heaven is to him, earth is to him, the ancestral realm is to him. The Ayats, or the domains of Heru, and the Ayats of Set, the domains of Set, the cities are his as well. He rules over them. Atem has gathered together for him all the administrative divisions of the spirit realm. And Geb, the earth divinity, the father of All-Star, has spoken concerning this. Then the text says, Tahuti grinds his knife and sharpens his knife and crushes in heads and cuts open chests. And he crushes in heads and cuts open chests of those who attack Hepi when he is journeying to you, All-Star. He breaks the heads of those who repel Hepi when he is journeying to you, All-Star, that you may give him life and serenity. So you have the deity of divine wisdom sharpening his knife, crushing heads, cutting open chests. Anybody who goes against the great ancestor, the great Afurakani, great Afuraitkaitnit, then the divinity of wisdom sharpens his knife, cuts open chests, and crushes heads to restore order. That's from one of the oldest texts in the world. Now, any fool from this point on who tries to tell you that Tahuti is only about peace, then you understand that they have either number one, they do not know what the hell they're talking about, or number two, they're simply lying to you because they're trying to control your movement. And they're working on behalf of the whites and their offspring, which many of them are. If you look in the Yoruba tradition, there's Odu talking about Orumila grabbing staff that he uses and the stick he uses, that stick that they tap when they're engaging in Ifa, Divination, and using that to stab the enemy with it. This is the same retelling of the same kind of text in the Yoruba Oduifa that you find in the Meru text talking about Tahuti. Well, let's look at the name of Tahuti, titles of Tahuti and Seshat, and we'll see that even within their names, all of this is true. So Tahuti is also called Tek. And we say in ancient Kemet, the Toro, the god of divine wisdom, divine speech, learning, writing, the sciences, etc., is called Tahuti. Tahuti is also called Tehi and Tek. As Tek, he is the regulator of the time and seasons, nature's rhythm. It is for this reason that he is also the Ntoro, or deity, from the first month of the calendar of Kemet. Tek is the male counterpart to Tekit. Tekit is the Ntoro, the goddess of divine wisdom. She is also the Ntoro, or Neter, quote-unquote, of the first month of the calendar. Together, Tek and Tekit govern the natural rhythm. Then we say Tahuti, who's also called Tek, as a divine measurer of time. And, of course, when you measure time, that's the foundation of science. Calculation. He's a measure of time is shown as the divine scribe holding the notched palm branch. Seshat, as the title of the female counterpart to Tahuti, is the divine scribe. So Sesh means scribe. So Tahuti is also called Sesh. That's just a descriptive title, meaning the divine scribe, regulator of the times and the seasons, one who writes the times and the seasons and the regulation and the calculation of all things in creation. He writes them down and records. He is therefore Sesh, a descriptive title. She is called Seshat, which is the feminine version of Sesh. You have Sesh and then Seshat or Seshet, which means the female divine scribe. And you see her with the notched palm branch as well. She's a divine scribe, also holding the notched palm branch. This palm branch represents the enumeration or measurement of time and the proper place of all created things, entities, things, and events within the divinely created continuum. We show an image of Tahuti standing with the notched palm branch. Then we show an image of Seshat with the notched palm branch, measuring time. Then we show an image of them standing together, and both of them are holding the notched palm branch, and they have a writing utensil in their hand, and they're measuring time and writing the measurements into creation. So we also, but on this particular picture, we say, notice the symbol on the head of the Ntoro divinity Seshat. Her symbol, this symbol of a seven-pointed star or plant with two horns inverted above it, lends its name to another title of Seshat. So when you look on her headdress, that seven-pointed plant or star with two horns above it gives her another title. She is thus called Sofit or Sefket Yabu. Sefket can mean seven. That's the seven-pointed star, seven petal plant. Abui means the two horns. However, the term Sefet or Sofit also means to untie, to unfasten, to loosen, to set free, to cut off, to cut away with force or violence. Now remember we said resolve. San means to unloosen, to unravel, to free, to vindicate, and so forth. Sefet means to untie, to unfashion, to loosen, to set free. To cut off, to cut away with force or violence. This is in her name. The Habu bird, the Habui bird, the so-called ibis, is the bird which is sacred to Tahuti, the crane-headed divinity. And thus the bird form that Tahuti takes is his animal totem, Achinebois. And he's shown with the head of this particular bird on the body of a man, and sometimes he's depicted as the full bird. The Habu bird, the Habui bird, which was used its hooked beak to kill certain deadly animals and insects. It was thus a protector for the inhabitants of Kemet. This bird, Habu or Habui, was also called Tek. It is critical to note that the general term Teki in Kemet, with the determinative of a man wielding an axe, means massacre, slaughter. The term Tek, spelled with the soft T, also means to overthrow. Tek, or Tahuti, the Habui-headed deity, was seen as a divine protector for the establishment and maintenance of order through the application of wisdom, is a protective to us as we work to fulfill our divine function, our Akrabia. We rely on the divine laws, Ma'al scribed by Tahuti and Seshat, in order to protect ourselves from falling to a lustful, malicious, self-destructive lifestyle, existence, or those individuals who are into that. And then we talk about the Medut and Toro, which are the hieroglyphic symbols, as well as other sacred symbols such as the Adinkra symbols in Akhan culture, were formed, described by Tahuti and Seshat. These forces in nature created those symbols. When they say Tahuti created divine writing and Seshat created writing, this is a literal statement. These Medutu, these symbols, they're Medutu hieroglyphic symbols. Many of those symbols you find as Adinkra symbols in the Akhan tradition, same symbols you find as Veves drawn in Vodun, Dikenga, which you find in the Bakongo tradition, and other symbols amongst the Ndebele people and so forth. You'll find these ancient symbols. They were created by Tahuti and Seshat. People who engage in ancestral religious practice understand how that takes place because they witness it on a regular basis. When the Nsamanfo possess, an ancestral spirit possesses, when the Abosom possesses, very often they will move through the body of the person. They don't only just heal somebody, they'll direct somebody or push somebody to grab a pen, or if they're outside, grab a stick. Then they go into the sand or into the dirt and draw a particular symbol or a series of symbols. Then they'll point at the symbol and say the word which represents that symbol. And from that point on, you know that symbol is that particular word because the deity drew it first and then announced what the symbol was and what the name of it was and what it is. This is how Tahuti and Seshat created writing, and when they first did that, we remembered those symbols they used, and we continue to use them and the names that they used to associate with them. This is why the Medut Ntoro is divine writing. Ntoro, or quote-unquote netter, mispronounced, means deity or divine. Medut are the symbols. That's what the hieroglyphic writing is. That's what the Adinkra symbols are. So once ritually incorporated, these geometric forms become talismans, which we can employ to neutralize dissonant energy, inimical vibrations, projected upon us from other entities. These specialized forms also become functional matrices performing the function of Abosom Nkomre, meaning deity, shrine in miniature, whose potency we may activate for our spiritual alignment and realignment when thinking, conceptualizing, writing, speaking, meditating, engaging in Mpaibo, ritual prayer, and more. Meaning the geometric patterns. When life force energy circulates through a circle, even electromagnetic energy, if you get a wire and attach both ends to a battery, then the current just flows through the wire. If you wrap the wire around in a circle, then electromagnetic energy flowing through the wire is forced to wrap around and circulate within a circle. And because it moves throughout that circle over and over and over again, it generates within that circle an electromagnetic field. That's why you can wrap or tie some copper into a circle and attach it to a battery inside the loop, like in the form of an ankh, inside the loop of that circle, because the life force energy or electromagnetic energy is circulating through that circle. It creates a magnetic field. Now you can use that loop to pick up a paper clip or pick up something, a piece of metal. Just like that happens with electromagnetic energy, when our life force energy streaming from our Ba'et, projects from us and apprehends one of these geometric forms and circulates through these geometric forms, whether it's square, diamond, octagon, triangle, circle, or variations of these forms, they become matrices that resonate a particular configuration of energy. They become talismans when we invest our energy into these spiritual forms that were given to us by Tahuti and Seshat. And we can use these geometric forms. This is why we create jewelry in specific forms. When the life force energy circulates through those forms, they generate a magnetic field that can repel inimical vibrations, repel individuals, allow us to attune to forces in nature and so forth, and remove negative energy off of our body. This is one of the uses of Medutu, Adinkra symbols, Vebes, and so forth. They become miniature shrines. Even when we think about these symbols and formulate them in the luminous matter that's in our mind, then those symbols are still geometric forms. The life force energy is still moving through these geometric forms that are generated in our mind, within our spirit, and they still affect us in that fashion. So we go into some detail about that. So we talk about Tahuti and Seshat. They're called Tek and Tekit, are related to the word Tek, meaning massacre, slaughter, to overthrow. Sefket is related to the word Sefet, meaning loosening, unraveling, setting free. As the governor of the expansive pole of wisdom, Tahuti or Tek is directly connected with the revolutionary notion of San, to return, to revolt, to challenge, turn back, and so forth. As the governess of the contractive pole of wisdom, Seshat or Sofik Abu, has a function which is directly connected with the resolutionary notion of San, to loosen, unravel the disorder, to set free, to end the war. We show an image of Tahuti standing next to Heru Behudet and Aset. They have bound up the enemies around their necks, hands behind their backs, and feet behind their backs, and he's holding the ropes, holding the necks of the enemy, because Heru Behudet is stabbing the enemy to death. And so Houthi is holding the other enemies so that once Heru finishes stabbing them to death, then he can grab the ones that Tahuti is holding in bondage to kill them as well. Divine wisdom supporting the killing of the enemy. When you have a proper notion of wisdom, intelligence itself is revolution and resolution. San, net, san. We are to be san, san, fo, or san, san, fo, revolutionary. When you think intelligence, when you think wisdom, you must be thinking revolution, to return and go back to the origin, to grasp that knowledge you need, and resolution so you can use what you've grasped to eradicate disorder and the purveyors of disorder in your present situation. If you're not thinking revolution and resolution when you're thinking intelligence, then you do not know what intelligence is, because we've been corrupted by the whites and their offspring. We think intelligence or wisdom just means to be smart. Well, what is the functional application of wisdom? It is a return to the reservoir of divine consciousness that's within you, that holds all knowledge. Provoke that through revolution, or return, to revolt, to return, grasp what you need, and then resolve an issue. Revolution and resolution. And Tahuti and Seshat, the governor and governess of both poles, of the expansive pole of wisdom, revolution, and the contractive pole of wisdom, they support not only our development and cultivation and acquisition of knowledge to build society, build our own Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit nation, also support the eradication of disorder and its purveyors, our enemies, so that we can maintain the integrity of the nation that we have built. So we have texts from the Vrunu Pert and Heru, the so-called Book of the Dead, talking about Tahuti making Alsar victorious over his enemy, making him victorious and triumphant over his enemy. It's a prayer to Tahuti. Destroy the enemies so the person can be victorious over the enemies and restore order where disorder has prevailed. If you read that specific text, and you look on page, let's see what page that is. It's page 33. Just a specific text from the Shefdu or Papyrus of Ani, so-called Book of the Dead, Pert Emheru. Hail Tahuti, who made Alsar victorious over his enemies. Makes the Alsar, the scribe Ani, the one who made his transition, make him, Ma'akeru, to be victorious over his enemies. In the presence of the great divine rulers on the festival of the breaking and turning up of the earth, in the region of Dedu, on the night of the breaking and turning up of the earth in their blood, and of making Alsar to be victorious over his enemies. Some of these sections we bold so you can see the significance. When the themes of Set come and change themselves into beasts, the great divine rulers on the festival of the breaking and turning up of the earth in Dedu slay them in the presence of the deities therein, and their blood flows among them as they are smitten down. These things are allowed to be done by them by the judgment of those who are in Dedu. The great divine rulers in Rastau are Heru, Alsar, and Aset. The heart of Alsar rejoices, and the heart of Heru is glad, and therefore are the east and the west at peace. Hail Tahuti, who made Alsar victorious over his enemies. Make the Alsar Ani, the scribe and teller of the divine offerings of all the deities, to triumph over his enemies. In the presence of the 10 companies of great divine rulers who are with Ra and with Alsar and with every god and goddess in the presence of Neb-er-Jer. He has destroyed his enemies, and he has destroyed every evil thing belonging unto him. So we're talking about Tahuti being prayed to help the individual destroy his enemies, slay them in the presence of the deities, destroy his enemies, and destroy every evil thing belonging to them. That is divine wisdom, and it's composed of revolution and resolution. So we're dealing with the proofs of these things. So let's look. I want to make sure we didn't miss anything in the chat room right quick. Okay. The abosom, and if somebody had a question about the abosom, the divine hate, that is Herubehudet and Sechima, Bena, and Abena. Let me go to, go to the part 5 of the book, and then you go into the appendix. Actually, if you go to the appendix, we have even more Medutu showing the etymological origin, and the Medutu showing the etymological origin of the term hate. The exact same term in ancient Kemet. You also find it in the Akhan language, the exact same term, the exact same meaning, exact same pronunciation. We also show, for example, Kaitu, defined in ancient Kemet as the gods who slaughter the enemies of Ra and Alsar. Kait, which is the root of kait or ket or hate. You'll find it in Kemet means to slay, to defeat, to overthrow. It also means slaughter, massacre, ruin. And the Kaitu are the deities who slaughter the enemies of Ra and Alsar. The divinities of divine hate, they're headed up by the Odwirafo Titire, as we call them in Akhan, the divine executioners, which is Bena and Abena, Herubehudet or Herubedet in ancient Kemet, the winged sun disk, and then Sechima, Sekhmet, the lioness divinity. That's who they are. All right. So we also have here, you talk about the whites and their offspring, but what about what I call the whites in black skin, like those who wholeheartedly embrace white culture, for example, black police officers. So we have an Ebe proverb, divine ancestral wisdom, in Akwamuman, Amaruka, Atifi, the Akwamu nation in North America, which we teach, and of course is part of our 7-day celebration. You can see that on the website. The 7 major ancestral wisdom teachings, that each day of the 7-day New Year celebration revolves around a specific wisdom teaching associated with the deity that governs that day. On Ben Nada, Tuesday, on that 7-day celebration, of course, today is Ben Nada, or Tuesday, Abenada. The Ebe or proverb is Obarofo ye achiwadiefo, na achiwadiefo nina nye obarofo. It means all of the whites and their offspring are achiwadiefo, spirits of disorder, meaning divinely hated by the Supreme Being. Yet, all achiwadiefo, spirits of disorder, are not white. So all of the whites and their offspring are the enemy, spirits of disorder, cancerous cells within the body of black humanity. But you also have some within our body who become just like them. They become cancerous as well, and they become the enemies as well. And once they become the enemies and work against our people at the behest of the whites and their offspring, then they become cancerous as well and deserve nothing other than eradication, just like the whites and their offspring. So they're just as, they are the KKK, just like the whites are the KKK. You have black police officers gunning down black people at the behest of the whites and their offspring because they have become just like them. They are them, and they are no longer us. They are our enemies. And the black skin has nothing to do with it after that point. They have already repelled their own crop, soul, divine consciousness. Now they're a spirit without a crop, spirit without a soul. They are the enemy. Okay. So, and then there's another comment there, right, Odwirafo, it is in the text, like Ra, for example, is divine killer as well. White eyes make our culture docile. This is the goal. This is why we need to understand the goal of the whites in our offspring was after so-called emancipation, and even right before that, when they saw that we began to kill the whites in our offspring, insurrections, revolutions, resolutions jumping off, waging war against them, Nat Turner massacring crackers, Gabriel Prosser and Denmark Vesey and other individuals, males and females, waging war against the whites in our offspring. During these insurrections, it was planned that the water supplies and the food supplies were going to be poisoned if things didn't go down correctly. And we talk about that in the Okra Complex, The Soul of Akhan, our book. We have links to that information dealing with insurrections in North America, amongst the black people in North America, and how they used ancestral religion as the basis of these revolts. You attune to wisdom when you're trying to solve a problem. When we talk about let's be intelligent and plan how we're going to get out of slavery. All intelligence is held by Inyamewa Inyame through the agency of Great Chiri Hunuate and Abrewa, who is Tehuti and Sesha. So when we want to know something, what we're really doing, as soon as we close our eyes and try to think our thoughts for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit people, when we're yearning to actually know something, ultimately what we're doing is projecting and provoking the energy of Tehuti and Sesha, and then they respond to us and fill our spirits up with wisdom, and then we say, oh, I have an idea now, we need to move in this direction. We plan, we plot the insurrection, the revolution, we get the weapons we need, and we move forward. So now we talk about 7 principles of Ancestral nation building. We talked about the immediate response to things that are confronting us in the present moment, like these police killings. The immediate response, of course, is when murderers kill our people kill the murderer, period. Anything else is a waste of time to talk about. Once we get that into our spirits, in our souls, in our hearts, then you will see these murderers being gunned down themselves all across the country, consistently, nonstop, not just once, not just one day, not just 1 month, 1 year, every day, whenever it happens, wherever we are, consistent, including those past murderers who got off or appeared to get off. When they are taken out consistently, that's immediate. So we purify ourselves, align with divine wisdom. When you align with divine wisdom, you are instantaneously aligning with revolution and resolution. And then you begin to extract what you need and apply what you've extracted to remedy an issue. Then you deal with that's immediate. Then you deal with long-term solutions, which is the establishment of independence, a nation, a sovereign nation, and being secure in that sovereignty by defending that independent nation, establishing something on the continent, establishing something in the Caribbean, in South America, where different places where we are. Some people will not leave the United States at this particular time, but they will establish independent communities. We have the precedent of our people establishing all black towns. Instead of moving to a suburb, trying to live amongst the whites in our offspring, they move further out in an uncharted area, and instead of buying a house in a white suburb, they'll buy a house or have a house built or move into properties that have been abandoned and so forth and establish their own town, incorporate their own town, have their own police officers, have their own elected representatives that they establish themselves are in 100% absolute control. The only difference is it will not depend on the whites and their offspring and their largesse, and hope that just because we separated from them that they will not come and try to destroy us. We built Black Wall Street. There were a number of businesses insurance companies, banks, movie theaters, cleaners, and things like that. But there were also a number of churches, and that was a problem because some of us believe that if we just embrace the fake deity in the church and we separated ourselves from the whites and their offspring and said, hey, we don't want to interfere with you all. We're going to move as far away from you all as possible. We don't want to bother you. And if we stay away from you, we know you don't like us. Well, then we just won't deal with you at all. We'll just build things for ourselves, and we'll just pray to our deity and so forth. Some of them believe that if they separated themselves and were, quote-unquote, good, then the whites and their offspring wouldn't come and try to destroy what they have. Instead of having all those churches, they needed, and in this time when we establish and reestablish civilizations, even those who stay here incorporate towns. You can find out how to do that very simply by accessing those laws, going to find out a certain area that you want to move to, and incorporate a town. There are people who have towns that are less than 100 people. Incorporating a town, filing the papers and incorporating a town, establishing residences, and establishing your own government and putting your own people and being in absolute control of the territory, owning the land and everything therein. Only difference is we won't be building just businesses and we will not have any churches. Our town will be founded upon ancestral religious practices, so we know automatically that whenever we create something, no matter how far away we are from the whites and their offspring and how detached we are from them, they will come and try to destroy it, even if we are totally detached and have nothing to do with them. Don't talk to them, don't see them, don't come near them. They are parasites by nature. They will come and try to destroy it, but we will be ready. Let's talk about ancestral nation building, 7 aspects or principles of nation building. This is long term. We talked about the immediate response that develops within the but within the heart and within the soul or krawa of the individual, which cannot be charted by the whites and their offspring. They cannot tell when a person's samanfo, when their ancestors, when their own soul, when their own krawa will speak to them that morning or that night to get up and execute one of these murderers. They can't chart that. They can't control that. So the best thing they can do is to keep you away from engaging in anything like that, engaging in ancestral religion, because once you begin to speak to your ancestresses and ancestors, you start getting all kinds of ideas about how to restore order. And they can't put a bug in your house and listen in to see, well, when did the ancestral spirit move this individual and when are they going to act? Are they going to act today? Are they going to act tomorrow? Are they going to be like a real Chris Dorner who just decided one day to get up and go to war against the whites and their offspring? But, of course, it wouldn't be Hollywood like that, leaving notes and all this other nonsense. Just all of a sudden, the whites and their offspring, these murderers will be taken out, and nobody will know when it came, how it came, why it came, what time it came. It will just come, and they can't control that. So they would rather try to get you to be Christians, Muslims, Moors, Hebrews, all this other nonsense, so they can control your action. They don't want you speaking to your Nsamanfo. Our Nsamanfo, our ancestresses and ancestors teach us that a hostage is defined as someone who is not allowed to speak or communicate with their loved one. But they try to keep you from communicating with your ancestresses and ancestors by trying to demonize the practice, make you believe it's inferior, ignorant, superstitious, or will lead you to hell and all this other nonsense. They're trying to keep you from communicating with your loved ones. They're holding you hostage. Because when you communicate with them, they will direct you as to how to strike, when to strike, and how to be successful. We have a precedent for that. And the only successful revolutionaries and resolutionaries or San Sanfo were those who became Maroons in North America, Central America, South America, the Caribbean, and so forth, embraced their ancestral religion, waged war against the whites and their offspring, eradicated them, and freed themselves from enslavement in their lifetimes. They didn't wait 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, and talk about it at the worst condition that we were in a territory that was foreign to us, amongst the individuals speaking a different language, controlling the territory. We didn't know what was outside of the plantation. If there were lions, tigers, we didn't know what was outside. We didn't know who else was outside. All we knew was we're going to communicate with our NHOMA, we're going to get direction, and we're going to free ourselves from this bondage, enslavement right now. And they freed themselves, whereas other people who were involved in Christianity and everything else remained on the plantations until the Maroons forced the end of enslavement. They have been the only people who are successful at what we've been talking about for over 100 years. They freed themselves, established their sovereignty, and defended their sovereignty for the rest of their lives and lived independent in independent settlements right here in North America. If they can do that, and if they did that, which they did during enslavement, then surely we can do that now, even though the enslavement has changed, because 98% of us are still working for the whites and their offspring. If they could free themselves from enslavement back then and establish independent territories and defend those territories based on ancestral religion, then we can do that today. And the only ones who have ever been successful at independence during and after enslavement were the people who engaged those processes, embraced ancestral religion, and moved forward, embraced real revolution and resolution. Everybody else has been unsuccessful, whether nationalist, Christian, Muslim, so-called Moorish, of course, all of those things, Christianity, Islam, Moorishism, Judaism, Hebrewism, all of that nonsense was created by the whites and their offspring to brainwash our people. So, of course, those were not revolutionary movements anyway. But even the nationalist movements, if their foundation culturally had to do with Christianity or had to do with white culture, then when you look at the reality, even the Garvey movement and so forth, at the end of the day, nobody was liberated into an independent, sovereign condition based on any movement except those who embraced ancestral religion, moved forward, and freed themselves right in their lifetime. So we have a precedent. So if people want to continue to move in failed strategies, trying to resurrect failed strategies, they will continue to do that. But we will establish strategies based on precedents that were successful and only have the chance to be successful. Because we're dealing with truth, no quade, we're dealing with wisdom, which is revolution and resolution. And you can't deal with wisdom in reality without invoking Tahuti and Seshat. If you're not invoking them, then you're just a cracker talking about being smart or being intelligent or cunning or clever. But if you're dealing with real wisdom, that is an invocation of the forces in nature that govern wisdom. We're talking about reality, not brainwashed Negroes who hate their culture and inferiorize their culture, attempt to, by rejecting it and saying, well, we were never practicing religion, we didn't believe in any deities, it's just about quantum physics or a scientific approach to life. These are Negroes who have rejected maybe Christianity and Islam and Judaism and Hebrewism, but now they've embraced the pseudoscience of atheism, or they've embraced, quote-unquote, empirical science, which is nothing more than the whites and their offspring guessing about things, engaging in establishing hypotheses and trying to prove their beliefs. So it's still a belief. We have something that's beyond that. We deal with the forces in nature, and then we bring that to physical reality. We've done that from ancient Kemetic. So we established civilizations, structures, societies that were harmonious, and this is how we restored ourselves to balance. Now, if we look at these 7 principles of ancestral nation building very quickly, in OBARIMA, Afurakani, Manhood, we're going to find a page real quick that deals with that. page 15. We simply deal with 7 principal values of Ancestral nation building, based on the Aboson that govern the 7 days of the week, the solar, lunar, and planetary bodies that govern the 7 days of the week and all natural cycles. And we have 7 principal values of nation building related to those 7 sets of divinities that govern those 7 solar, lunar, and planetary bodies. And therefore, there's a holistic set or principles dealing with nation building, not just food, clothing, and shelter and safety. Methods of food production and preservation. First thing you need to be able to have a nation. Methods of food production and preservation. Methods of curing disease. You must have that, or else you cannot sustain an independent nation. A military structure, defense, security. They didn't have that with Black Wall Street. They had businesses, they had community, but they didn't have a military structure. Instead of having the churches, they should have had black militia. Military structure for defense, security, because you know the enemy will come after you when you develop anything. Institutionalization of values, establishing institutions which train people in methods of food production and preservation, train people in curing disease, train people in the military structure, defense, security, and so forth. Cultural institutions, holidays, ritual practices that teach us how to incorporate law and restore balance, teach us the values of the culture so the people understand the value of the culture and why we must defend it. When you understand the value of the culture, then you are instantaneously, innately, and intrinsically drawn to defend it at any cost. You're not just ready to die for the culture, you're ready to kill for the culture. Methods of governance and jurisprudence. We must have sound systems of governance so we can govern ourselves without falling into anarchy and disorder, and jurisprudence so we can mitigate disputes and maintain balance, even though parties are disputing every now and then. Constructions of homes on acquired land, of course, shelter and land, and manufacturing of clothing. But then this kind of knowledge, of course, when we say methods of food production and preservation, we also talked about utilizing these elements of earth. We poison the food supply. We not only feed ourselves, produce, preserve food so we can feed ourselves. You're waging war against the enemy like on a plantation. But they're waging war against us, genetically modified foods. That knowledge of food production and preservation can also be weaponized. Methods of curing disease within us can also be weaponized to wage chemical and biological warfare against our enemies when they're trying to murder us. Of course, a military structure defending ourselves, but then going on the offense against the enemy. Institutionalization of values. Institutions that teach these skills of nation building, but also defense. Somebody has skills, for example, in information technology. If you attune to wisdom, that's revolution and resolution, then you want to only use those skills to make things efficient technologically in your business, in the society, Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit society, and so forth. You will weaponize that knowledge. You may not pick up a gun or a bomb, but then you become a hacktivist. They're not just white hacktivists. We don't know what the group Anonymous is doing. We don't know who they are. They could be simply a government front. But there are black hacktivists. So when they talk about they shut down a portion of the electric grid of a city, or they shut down the TV station via the internet from this country, or doing it via the internet from outside this country. When they go into the records of somebody or the phone records of somebody, or go into the house of someone or their security system and their cameras, and they show that on the internet because they've hacked in, shutting down the water supply in an area, shutting down all kinds of things. Hacktivists exist within the black community. You can weaponize that information technology and cause all kinds of problems for people who are trying to murder you. So when you attune to divine wisdom internally, then nobody knows when you're going to attune to that kind of information. That's why the whites in our offspring don't want us to embrace our ancestral religion, because they can't control the communication that we receive from the Abosom, from the Orisha, from the Vodou. They don't know when we'll use our information technology skills, weaponize it, and use it to wage war against the whites in our offspring. That's more devastating than somebody just dropping a bomb in many respects. Taking out an electric grid of a city is more devastating than somebody running up in some neighborhoods and shooting at everybody. So these are the kinds of things we're talking about. So those 7 aspects of nation building, and just any skill set that you have. These are long-term things, nation building, but then any skill that you have can be weaponized. That's key. We only have 3 minutes left in the broadcast. We don't really have to go into overtime per se. If you want to stay on the phone past 11 o'clock, you have two and a half minutes to call in, because online it will cut off, but people on the phone can still hear. The phone number is 657-383-0635, 657-383-0635. You have like 2 minutes to call in, or else you won't be able to hear the show after that. So we want to get into that, show what real revolution and resolution is. San Safo, revolutionaries, show what we are. Short-term remedies, long-term institution building remedies, nation-building remedies to remedy our situation. We want to talk about also, when we're dealing with institution building, and let's see, okay, we have a question in the chat room. Let me make sure that I didn't miss any questions on the phone line. And by the way, you also have, again, a minute and a half, 90 seconds, 657-383-0635. You have 90 seconds to call in, 657-383-0635. Question in the chat room, Odwirafo, I may have missed it. Did you speak about Akongwasui dying yet? Okay. So what the question is about Akongwasui dying, that is our institution, which we've had for a number of years, but what we're doing now, we were previously in Chicago. We've lived in D.C. for the past few years. What we're doing now is seeking to obtain a space so that we can have the institution housed in that space. Up until this point, we've done workshops. All of our workshops are free. Of course, our 15 books are free downloads, and then we sell the softcover books. We also have an option for people who would like to be distributors of our work. The softcover versions, they can sell our books, purchase them wholesale, and sell them retail independently as an entrepreneur. So if people come to us, then we should be able to offer them some option of employment, and this is what we do. We have workshops on substance abuse, abstinence, ritual methods that assist people to overcome drug addiction, alcohol, marijuana, cigarettes, and so forth. And many people over the years have done that through these ritual methods. These workshops are free. Teaching these ritual methods are free. Training social workers and therapists and so forth on how to incorporate culture when they're engaging in therapeutic interventions with their clients. We have those workshops as well. Of course, the classes that we have, all of those different things, including the publishing activities as well as the broadcast, instead of doing these things either in our private residence or having to rent out spaces to have these presentations and so forth, what we're doing now is we're seeking to acquire a space, and we updated our Akongwasui Dine page on our website. You see that on the website, and we'll put the link in the chat room right now. Akongwasui page, and we're trying to acquire that space by December 21st before it's taken off the market, and it can be taken off at any time if somebody sees it and wants to get it. So the way people can assist us, specifically for those individuals who have studied our work, read the books, studied the books, read through many articles. We have over 60 articles in addition to the 15 books. People who have participated and engaged the ritual practice and overcame substance abuse through the ritual practice. We've had a number of people do that. A couple have mentioned that on the show before. People have come to the workshops. We have the Ptah dealing with educational curriculum. We have the book Ptah that lays out that 7-stage curriculum, 7 sessions of 40 minutes that you can implement with people you work with. The OBARIMA, Afurakani Manhood workshops based on the book, where we give a free copy of the book to all the young males and older males who come to the workshop and go through the 7 principal values of manhood in the books, and they have their own manual for Afurakani Manhood when they leave. And based on the 7 days of the week, and they have also some of the 7 days of the week, so now they have every day a principle to focus on to better themselves. When they better themselves and purify themselves, it's better for their children, better for their spouses, their families, and community as well, bringing balance and order back to the community. So people who have studied from the books, studied the free books, purchased some softcover books, people who have listened to the broadcast, watch the videos, come to our presentations in different cities. Every city we have gone to, we've given away a free copy of one of our softcover books. We've given over 360 free books away over the past year. And every time we do a presentation in the future, we will be doing that as well. So instead of us, having to rent out spaces all the time, if you want to support what we're trying to do to get a physical space in the D.C. area, for the Akwamu institution, it will be the Akwamu Dine. Dine means sanctuary or dwelling. Akwamu Dine or building. You can simply support by either purchasing softcover books. Maybe you've read the free ebook versions, and some of them you particularly want to have in your house, in your hand, so you can read them on the train, take them to work, show them to people, highlight them, and so forth. They range between $8 and $11. Of course, 10 books or more. Some people order a 10-book set with a whole 15-book set, like an encyclopedia set. It is 30% off of the $8 to $11 regular retail price. So you can purchase the books that supports us. You can make a donation, of course, that supports us. Any $15 donation or more will send you a softcover book anyway. So your support of us acquiring this space will actually be, just through the regular process of you just purchasing books, which you will receive the books right away, and you gain from that, the knowledge from that. But at the same time, you're actually supporting what we're doing. If you make a donation, of course, we'll still send the book, but that will support us as well. We're trying to acquire this property as soon as possible because we don't want it to be taken off the market. So that's all on the Akwamu page on the website on Odwirafo.com. So when you go through and you see Akwamu, AKONGUASUA, then you'll see that we updated that page, added all the information about the different activities that will be going on at the center, including all the classes, all the ritual observances. It'll be the Center for Publishing, and for those who become distributors, it'll be that distribution center, so you can come pick up the books there and then go out and sell the books and generate the funds for yourself, the income for yourself. We will also be live streaming classes, of course the broadcast, but the classes as well. So even if you're not in the D.C. area, you can still participate in the institution from wherever you are in the world. So this will give us the capacity to serve the community at an even greater, at a higher level. We'll also use it as a center for Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit homeschooling program. So certain days, homeschoolers get together. They take their children to certain areas, field trips, or certain programs. They can use our space for certain activities, certain classes, certain lessons during the day, and so forth as well. So all of that information is on the website. Medase and Yedase, we thank you to those individuals. We've had a few individuals since we announced this a couple of days ago who have made some purchases of books and sent some donations. We appreciate that. Yedase P, we appreciate that. Thank you very much for that, because we're trying to establish this center so we can serve the community in a greater capacity. We hadn't put the information out to just the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit public in general. And the reason for that is two reasons. Number one, the key is for the people who value the work that we're doing, and the people who will value the work we're doing is the people who've already benefited from the work. So people who have not yet read our free books yet, or haven't heard any broadcasts, or haven't benefited from the substance abuse abstinence piece, or the Afurakani manhood piece, or whatever, or training the workshops, if they haven't accessed that yet, then it doesn't make sense to ask somebody like that, say, hey, do you want to support an institution? People who have already accessed the information and seen the value of it, then if it is valuable, then it will make sense for you to support the institution. This is one of the reasons we put the books out for free. We want accurate information to get to everybody in our community around the world however they can access it. But you get a chance to, instead of being made to purchase a book, which you may or may not like, you can read the whole book for free. And if you like it and you see it as valuable, then you can make the decision without coercion to purchase it if you like to. But even if you don't, at least you got the information. Even if you didn't have any money, you still got the information. But you get the information up front, and then if you see it's valuable, then you can make a payment, you can purchase, or you can make a donation. Just like if, you don't pay for your car to be fixed. You wait until they fix it and see that it's remedied and see that it's working properly to your satisfaction and value has returned to it now. Then once you see that it's done and it's workable, then you pay. And it's the same kind of thing here. We give the books out for free online. If we were multimillionaires and we could give all the books away for free physically as well, we would do that, and at some point we'll be in a position where we can hand out millions of free books around the country and different parts of the world physically, and we're going to do that as well. Whenever we can get to that point, we will. Right now we can't, but we can do it with the Internet. We can put everything out that we have published for free, and that's what we have done. So you get the information up front. You see the value in it, and when you see the value in it, then you can support. So people who have recognized the value in the culture and what we are doing, it makes sense for those individuals to share the information about the Akhamu dying, and if they see the value in what we've already done without a center, headquartered, where all the activities can all be in one place, then they can see how it would be much more beneficial for the even the community, just people in the street, in the area of the community where the center will be. Now they can walk and go to a place and see these books, see these classes going on. They'll have somewhere to go and get enriched. So when they come out, they will purify themselves, learn about their natural health. We have classes for that as well. Aboankwa ritual movement, spiritually, physically, culturally, socially, and so forth. They purify themselves, and when they go interact with their spouse, interact with their children, interact with their family, interact with the Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit community, that purification will have a beneficial effect on the community at large. And we'll be spreading this information about Nyansa, divine wisdom, revolution, and resolution. These short-term remedies for every problem that we have, long-term remedies as well. And institution building is the basis for addressing long-term systemic issues, to correct them, to rectify things. And then, of course, the great institution will be the nation state itself. And we have the capacity to do that. We have the precedent set by our ancestors right here in North America about establishing independent settlements during slavery with the Maroon societies, after quote-unquote enslavement, with the establishment of incorporating black cities, black towns. Only difference is we'll have, a spiritual center. We'll have a militia. We will be defending what we build. So anybody who would like to support, please, support us, of course. You can go to the website, Odwirafo.com. Always, check out the links, check out the broadcast and everything else. There was a question in the chat room, what about spiritual warfare? And that as well. So when we talk about Afurakani, Afuraitkaitnit, Ancestral Religion, that's all encompassing. When you read the book about the Okra complex, the soul of Akhan, talking about your function in the world and what abosom are connected to you, all of that, and then the establishment of an ancestral shrine and a shrine to your Kra, that is not only about your spiritual cultivation and alignment, but part of alignment is not only to develop yourself, but also to protect yourself. Just like when you eat food and so forth, you fuel yourself and give yourself power and energy to act, but you're also strengthening your immune and lymphatic systems to defend. So it's the same thing spiritually. You engage in ritual practice not only to, strengthen yourself and be focused and balanced, but part of that is also to develop your spiritual immunity so you can wage war spiritually as well. And that's all part of ancestral religion. But we also wanted to focus for individuals who did not know that extends directly, ancestrally, religiously from Tahuti, the divine wisdom, Seshat, divine wisdom, female, extends from religious practice, spiritual practice, directly into confrontation with the murderers of our people, and on the short term, and then long term, institutional wise, establishing institutions. So we bring that spiritual information into a physical reality. So we wanted to stress that tonight. But yes, when you read the books and talk and look at the information that we publish and talk about, we deal with the spiritual aspect of it as well. But there's always a balance between the spiritual and the physical. Okay, so it's 11:13. We're going to end here, but we will be back on tomorrow. We're going to send out a notification, let you know who the guest for tomorrow's Upuat Marketplace show will be, dealing with a specific Afurakani business that serves the community and promotes our values, ancestral values as well. So, Yedase, we thank you for tuning into the show. Check out the website. Please support our Akongwasuya institution building effort. Look at what we've done. Look at the track record. Look at the information we've put out. If it is of value, then support according to your capacity and your desire. And we check us out on Akanfo Nanasom on Facebook. We have that group. We also have our own private social network, Afuraitkaitnit.ning.com. You can find all of these links on our regular website, Odwirafo.com, ODWIRAF.com. So we wanted to give real resolution, and from this point on, you'll be able to resolution the difference between Neverlution and resolution. Yedase, we thank you, and Yebeshiabio, we will meet again. What's up?